Hello! In this video, I'm going to explain what you need to take notes on as we read Salt to the Sea as a class. We're going to do this, we're going to set up our notes in class, but if you were gone, this video will help you get some pages set up for you to take notes on so that when I say open to this page, you actually have it. I've got my iPad here, so I'm going to turn to that in just a minute, and that's where I'm going to put notes. But the first page in the book, Salt to the Sea, is narrated by one of our main characters, Joanna. There are four main characters. So Joanna is the first one, right? And the next one is Florian. We turn the page. Emilia. The next one, Alfred, right? So one character narrates for just a couple pages, and then another character jumps off or picks up right where the other one leaves off, okay? And then after Alfred, back to Florian, back to Emilia, back to Joanna, back to Florian again, back to Emilia. So it jumps around between all of them. It's not even. But we got to make. We're going to make one character log for each of these characters plus another couple pages. Okay. So let's look at our iPad. Here's what this is going to look like. When we open to the first page of the book, of course, we see Joanna first. So the first character log we're going to create is Joanna's. I'm going to look at the left page first. Okay. This is going to be called the Joanna character log. You guessed it. Now I've left a space here because I don't know her last name. I'm going to find it out later in the book, but I'm going to leave that space there so that I can fill it in later. Now, as I said, each character takes turns being, or all of the characters take turns being the narrator. And so what we're going to call this as we read is moments, right? We're going to call each of these little chapters moments. So on the left, I'm going to write moments. And underneath that, I'm going to write down every moment that Joanna narrates so that if I have to find spots where she's the narrator and we're inside her head, it'll be easy for me to find if I have a list of page numbers, okay? The beginning of the book is her. She's the first narrator, so 1, right? I think she might be the next one after all of them, so the next one might be 9. I'm not sure. We'll see when we read the book, right? But at least page 1 is when she's narrating, okay? So that's the first thing I've got in my Joanna character log. Okay. The next thing I'm going to add is still on the left page, way down at the bottom. I'm going to go halfway and divide the page from the bottom just a few lines, 8, 9, 10 lines. And in this little section, right, I'm not going to write notes in there as far as what goes on that side, but this section is going to be called baggage. And this is where I'm going to write down everything that I know Joanna is carrying as I read the book. Everything she's literally carrying with her, any baggage she has. Now that's most of the left side. Last thing we're going to add is this left side is going to be before the novel. And we're going to learn a lot about each character's backstory as we read the book. And they're also going to develop quite a bit in the book, right? So this side is for before the novel. On the right, we're going to have development in the novel. Development in the novel is where we're going to see how the character changes as the novel progresses, right? So on the left, we'll add things before. On the right, we'll add things during the novel. Now, on the top of the right side, we're also going to write key backstory because there will be a moment in the book where Joanna explains, she summarizes her entire backstory all at once. And we're going to write that on the top of this right page. Okay. Now, we're almost done with this character log. The other thing we're going to set up, though, is we're going to look at the whole page. If I zoom out a little bit, and we're going to divide it on the very right margin of the right page. So when we look at that, I'm going to divide it in half. We're going to put it into 4 sections. So in half, and then each of those sections in half. That wasn't a perfect half. So in half, and then each of those 2 sections that we have left also in half. Right, so now we've got 4 sections over here. Okay. Now the top one, I'm going to call guilt. On the next one, I'm going to call fate. And the next one, I'm going to call shame. And the last one, I'm going to call fear. So I'm calling them these things because the first line that Joanna says in the novel is, guilt is a hunter. So throughout the book, she's feeling hunted by guilt. She's feeling a lot of guilt over a bunch of stuff, and we're going to find out what those things are. But every time I see her feeling guilty, I'm going to write down that page number in this little guilt section. Every time I see her feeling like she's out of control of her life and her circumstances and her fate, I'm going to write down the page number in the fate section. Every time I see that she is feeling shame about something, like it's who she is, it defines her, she has to keep it a secret, that's going to be, I'm going to write that down. Same with fear, okay? Florian says fate is a hunter. Amelia says shame is a hunter. Alfred says fear is a hunter, okay? So we're not just going to keep track of the things that are hunting those individual characters. We're going to keep track of the way each character feels all four of those things. And there's an assignment coming up where you're going to have to analyze how characters feel the thing that hunts them the most and the things that hunt other people also hunting them. And that'll make more sense when you get to the assignment. But we're going to keep track of them now because that'll make the assignment easier later on. So if we don't add this section, it'll actually make our lives harder. So back to the iPad. We've got this Joanna character log set up. Okay, now we're also going to do the exact same thing for a Florian character log. I'm going to leave space for his last name as well. Okay, Florian character log. He's the second character we meet. The third is Emilia. And then finally, the Alfred character log. Now, we've got our four main character logs set up, and they should all be the same. Okay, we've got their name, moments, their backstory before the novel, a section to keep track of their baggage, their key backstory, a place to keep track of their development in the novel, and somewhere to write down when they feel guilt, fate, shame, or fear, right? So we've got all of these things ready to track for all four characters, or at least we should, okay? Now, that's step one, done. Or maybe steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, but we've got two other pages that we need to create in order to take notes on everything that will help us later on in the book. Okay, now there are these four main characters, but there are also four minor characters. And no, they're not each going to have their own character log, but we're just going to have one more page for all the minor characters, right? We're just going to call it minor characters. And I'm going to take this page and I'm going to divide it in half vertically and horizontally as best as I can, right? Not perfectly straight lines, but that's okay. Now, there are four minor characters, and we're going to meet them all pretty quickly in the book. The first one is the wandering boy. The next is a girl named Ingrid. Next is the shoe poet. Sounds like a weird name, but it'll make sense when we get to who he is, okay? And then an older woman named Eva, maybe middle-aged, really. So when we find out details about them, we're just going to put them in these little corners, right? Whatever it is that we learn, we're going to put them in there. We don't need a whole lot of space for them. They're minor characters, okay? The last page we're going to create, settings. And you might even add insult to the sea. Settings, insult to the sea, okay? Now, in this section, we're going to, on this page, we're going to have a few different sections. So it's going to be the setting, we're going to go a little bit left to the middle, not quite the middle, and we're going to draw a big vertical line down the whole page, okay? So we got a settings section. Now, we're going to say start. Write it pretty small. We're just going to write what page that setting begins at, right? When do we first see that setting? And then end. So when the character leaves that setting, write down the page number in that section. My lines aren't perfect, but I'm only going to be writing like one number in each column. Okay, so I don't need them to be super huge. And then I'm going to write key events. Okay, so I've got this section. So now when I get to a setting, I'll write down what it is. So for example, don't write this down because this is just an example. The mall. Right? Maybe the characters get to the mall on page 7 and they don't leave until page 91. They spend many pages at the mall. And the key events is Joe dies. Mike gets lost, right? Whatever it is, I'll write down all the key details there. My penmanship is suffering, so I'm trying to go fast. And then, of course, I'll add the next setting that they go to afterwards, like the armory, right? And then I'll go 93, 101, you know, whatever happens, okay? And so those are the kind of things we're going to write down in this page so that we can keep track of these, because these characters move around quite a lot, and you will want to have this tracked as we read. That's going to help you a lot later on, okay? Now this video is almost 10 minutes long, but in class we took an hour to begin reading the book and do all of this stuff all at once. So if you just set up these pages and then start reading the book, adding things to those character logs and the other pages as you engage with them, as you encounter them in the book, then you'll be caught up. So if you were gone, I hope this was helpful. Otherwise, come talk to me, but I'll see you in class.